What's up, Fanatics? So, the Stanley Cup, a really lame NBA draft, my 2 cents on Major League Baseball and the Bucks, some ranting, and maybe even a trip in the time machine this week. I'm Tim Clark, and you're listening to the Musings of a Sports Fanatic, a podcast found exclusively here at PennSports.live. So let's start with the Stanley Cup. We'll start with the good. And boy, I always admit when I'm wrong on here. I hope I'm not admitting that too often, but I was wrong about the Stanley Cup playoffs. I said that only people in Edmonton and a few people in Florida would give a crap about this Stanley Cup Finals, and I couldn't have been more wrong. Now, I think I did hit it on Florida. I think hockey in Florida is a lot like baseball in Florida. I'm not sure it works. There were a lot of Edmonton Oilers fans in the stands for Game 7 in Florida, but nonetheless, I was wrong about the excitement of this Stanley Cup Finals. Edmonton goes down 3-0, and then they keep winning, and they win, and they win, and they win. And the next thing you know, it's 3-3, and here we are back in Florida for Game 7, which, quite frankly, I think most people thought Florida's done. Like, Florida's gutted by what's happening here. And we're going to see history in the making to watch a team come back from down 3-0 to win a finals. But it didn't happen. Game 7 of a Stanley Cup final is must-watch TV. And I was in front of my TV for the whole thing as well. It's just they always say that the Stanley Cup is the hardest trophy in sports to win because it's just a 2-month dogfight. One game after another. 3-2, 4-2, empty netter. You don't get too many 6-1 games in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Maybe here and there, catch a breather, but most of the time, every game is a grind, and you do it for 2 months, and that's after you've already had a long regular season. So, you get to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. They're almost always low scoring. This one was 2-1. And when Florida made it 2-1 in the middle of the second period, they slipped that one by Skinner, the Edmonton goalie. I start wondering, okay, now there's, half the game's over, half the game is left. Can they possibly keep this 2-1 for the rest of the game? And even the guys in the studio, Messier was the one who spoke up and said, no, I don't, I think someone, Edmonton particularly was going to score. And I did too. Connor McDavid, Leon Drysdale, all those guys that they have that could score the puck. Bobrovsky was good all series, but I just thought they would get one more by him, and it wasn't for lack of effort. They spent most of the third period in Florida zone, firing pucks on net. They had that puck that, if you remember, drifted by the crease, but they couldn't do it. And sure enough, the game ended 2-1, and that was Florida's kind of game, a defensive type of game, and it was really fantastic. It was a nail-biter the whole way, edge of your seat. I didn't care who won, quite frankly, but I was on the edge of my seat. And then you start watching in the third period, okay, how much time's left? How much time's left? And you start ticking it down. Can they possibly hold them off for 4 more minutes, 3 more minutes, 2 more minutes? And they did. And, watching Maurice get the cup after all those years of toiling, he's a lifer in the NHL. That was really great. There's always great stories. Guys that have been kicked around from team to team to team. Evan Rodriguez comes to mind. And getting a shot to win the Stanley Cup and hoist that trophy. It's really cool. And let me tell you that the best part of the Stanley Cup Game 7, I don't know if you agree with this or not. You should if you don't, because this one I will. This is one of those I'll die on that hill type of messages. Sean McDonough is the best play-by-play man in sports today, and it's not close. And look, I think there's a lot of other good guys that do it, but you can put him in the NHL Finals, and he's absolutely top of the line, fantastic. And remember, we're talking about Doc Emmerich that we replaced. How are they going to replace him? Well, they went and got, and put the best guy in sports today in that position. He can be doing a baseball game. He is top of the line. When he does an NFL game or a college football game, he's top of the line. When he does college basketball, he's top of the line. And then when you pair him up with certain guys, like when he and Billis get together, it's fantastic because then his sense of humor comes out. He's got it all. Sense of humor. He's spot on with his description of what's going on. He doesn't say too much. He doesn't say too little. And boy, does he ever capture the moment. And listening to him count those seconds off at the end and yell that Florida's won the cup, and then he lets the scene play out. He is without question, and I think. Look, I grew up with Dick Enberg, who was absolutely he's my Mount Rushmore, and I don't know if I would even put anyone else up there with him. But Sean McDonough is getting to that point where I think you would put him up there in that elite status of play-by-play announcers in any sport, quite frankly, because he can do it all. But anyway, Game 7 was as good as it gets in the NHL. I was wrong. All the you hockey geeks out there, you were right. It turned out to be a great final. And look, now we sit here. Connor McDavid won the Conn Smythe. That brought a lot of controversy. I would like to see the winning team get the Conn Smythe. I didn't have a big problem with them giving it to him. He's certainly, the fourth highest amount of points in the playoffs. And it is for the entirety of the playoffs that the Conn Smythe is awarded. I didn't get bent out of shape like some people did. I agree that I think it should go to the winning team. Bobrovsky probably would have taken that for Florida, but I didn't really have a problem with it. And then, of course, he didn't come out to accept the trophy. I don't know. You just lost Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals, and you want the guy to immediately skate out there and, hey, thanks. Come on, man. Give the guy a break. But here we are. He still doesn't have a championship to his name. Now, is he going to have more? He's going to have more chances next year, maybe. I mean, Edmonton, I'm sure, is going to continue to do whatever they can to put good people around him and give him a chance. And we know this in every sport. Every great doesn't always stack up a bunch of championships. It just doesn't always happen for every great player. And to insinuate that he's not a great player because he doesn't have a Stanley Cup championship, I think, is a little short-sighted as well. But anyway, so the NHL goes into their off season, which always seems like it only lasts about 3 weeks. And the next thing you know, they're skating in camp again, getting ready for the next season. That's why I always think, what a difficult sport to repeat, because you've just gone through that torture all those months from October to June, and then you get July off, and by mid to late August, say, hey, let's strap on the skates and we'll get into camp here and get ready for our early October season debut. I think that those two teams that reach the finals have to have such a difficult time, especially early in the season next year, getting it revved up. Switching over to basketball, the NBA draft, this might be at least, I'm 57 years old. I can't remember in my lifetime another NBA draft that had as little hype as this one does. There's just not a lot of difference makers coming in. Not that some of these players won't be good. Look, the Sixers took Jared McCain, and it was the only guy. It was the one guy they came and interviewed and did all the pre-draft stuff with. So if someone would have taken McCain ahead of them, I'm not sure where they were heading, because there were no tea leaves to indicate another direction that they were going in. But he can play point. He can shoot it a little bit. He can find ways to score. And hopefully maybe he can give Maxey a blow here and there to kind of run the team, or let Maxey play off the ball, maybe better yet. But there was another guy. We all know Tobias Harris is gone from the Sixers. He's thankfully not coming back. Um, and he got taken with the next pick, and that was Dalton Connect out of Tennessee. Um, Now, he is not always interested on the defensive end, but on the offensive end, he can fill it up. And I thought he would be maybe, I'm not sure how tall Tobias Harris is. Connect might have been a smaller version of Tobias Harris, but certainly I would think he's going to be a far better shooter, more consistency. And I was kind of hoping that was the direction the Sixers would go in. And then when he got taken with the next pick by the Lakers, that kind of stung a little bit. But um, I don't know that you're going to see any of these names be superstars. Certainly not early in their career. It might take a building process for some of them. Two guys that I was keeping an eye on because I do follow USC basketball. I'm a Louisville fan, but I follow USC because of my football fandom there. Bronny James did not get taken, and that shouldn't surprise anyone. He's not a first round pick, nor is he a second round pick. Um, but the question remains: is someone going to take him? Has LeBron? Maybe is it possible LeBron put out the word, "Hey, nobody take him," and the Lakers will sign him to a free agent contract so that they can get him in there? Does he go? What is it? G League, D League? They always change the name on there or the letter on that. And work there for a while. He's a good kid and he's got good basketball skills. He just doesn't have good NBA basketball skills. And I know the whole deal, dad wanted to play with him. So we'll see. I think the Lakers have a second round pick today in the second part of the draft. So we'll see if they take a flyer on him and how much hoopla would that put in LA with LeBron and his son on the same team. Might not be fair to the rest of that team because let's face it, those are that's the first, second, third, fourth, fifth question that you're going to have to answer every time you talk to the media. So it's going to be interesting to see. The other one was the USC kid, Isaiah Collier, dropped the whole way to 29th in the first round, next to last pick. Now, that puts him on a winning team. Minnesota, I think it was, or Dallas, maybe it was. I guess it would have been Dallas. But this was a kid that came in as when he entered USC for his freshman year last fall. He was projected as, at worst, a lottery pick, and a lot of projections had him as the first pick in the NBA draft this year. And as I said in my column, the Andy Enfield effect took place. Andy Enfield sometimes will take great players and diminish them because of the way his style of coaching and playing at the college level. And Collier proved he doesn't have a jump shot at all. Not a consistent, not even close to consistent jump shot. He sometimes gets out of control. He does get to the foul line a lot. He can create. And you know what? I'm curious to see. I'm going to keep an eye on him in the NBA. He might be one of those cases where his game relates to the NBA a little bit better than it did in college, where it's a little more open and there's a little more freedom to create. And we'll see. But it has become a jump shooters league, and Isaiah Collier is not a jump shooter by no stretch of the imagination. So it'll be curious to see how he fits in. But going to a winning team might allow him the space he needs to grow into the player that everyone thought he could be. So that should be interesting. All right, let me see if I can do this. I'm going to try this again. You guys know my skills here. All right, so shut that off. This is going to be confusing for me. I desperately need a producer. Anyway, that's my time machine attempt at a video time machine. So this is, I always forget, every week I forget, I'm taping on June 27th. It's 1:42 in the afternoon. Yesterday, June 26th, 2001, I'm going to try this again. This happened, and it's one of the greatest things I've ever seen.
Kendall bounces this one up the middle. Shortstop, nice pick. Hernandez throws on the first and just does get Kendall. He doesn't agree with that call. And Tommy Sant gets between him and the first base umpire, and out comes Lloyd McClendon again. Jose Hernandez moving far to his left, behind second. And now Lloyd McClendon has been tossed, and McClendon turns and fires his baseball cap. Well, the first base umpire has McClendon steamed. He turned and whipped his cap towards second base. It's still sitting on the grass. And now McClendon walks back. He's going to pick up first base a la Lou Piniella. And he's walking away with the first base bag. But this time he doesn't turn and throw it, at least not yet.
All right, so one of my favorite of all these miserable losing seasons that the Pirates have had over the last 45 years, with a few winners in there, but mostly losing. That is, you look for anything that'll give you a chuckle or, whatever. And Lloyd McClendon taking first base out of the hole and marching into the dugout with it because of a missed call at first base with Jason Kendall is one of my all-timers, 2001. I liked Lloyd McClendon. I got to admit, he wasn't exactly working with a stacked deck in Pittsburgh. He had a few veterans, and there was always, were the veterans picking on the younger guys, Kendall and Giles and all that. Who knows? But I always liked McClendon. He got another shot with Seattle, and then he's kind of faded away. I don't know if he's got to be coaching somewhere, but I'm not sure what he's up to these days. But Rick Reed was the umpire, and I will give Rick Reed credit. See, he's a veteran umpire. He was a veteran umpire in 2001. And you see some of these guys today, I write about it in my column a lot, that almost egg on some of the issues. He made the call. It might have been wrong. It was wrong, actually. I'm sure he didn't think it was wrong. He thought maybe it was wrong. And he let McClendon come out. But when he whipped his hat and started pointing his finger, that was it. He ran him. And then he just let him go, kicking the dirt, picking the base up. And he stood there with his arms crossed. I could have let the video play a little bit longer. He let the grounds crew kid come out and put the base in. He didn't say a word. And once the base was back in, McClendon had already marched down to the clubhouse, gave Bill Verdon his lineup card. And just a fantastic moment. We don't get enough of those. It's why I love when I see an Aaron Boone highlight on Twitter. I always watch it because Aaron Boone's one of those old school guys as a manager that he's not going to let things go. And I miss the brouhahas of the old days and the stunts of the old days that managers used to do. And I'm not sure you would see any of the managers today do what McClendon did, but God, that was good for a laugh back then and now as well, to watch him storm off with first base, drop it in the dugout, and then he spins his hat right onto the stake of the base, and it was perfect. So anyway, all right. So one more. I'm going to do this one more time. I don't think I've screwed it up too bad so far.
What's your problem?
All right, Spicoli. I've got several problems this week, as always. We're going to start JJ Redick was named the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, and he gave his initial introductory press conference, and he dropped an F-bomb. And without sounding like a prude, I don't care what words anybody says. I say words too. I think most adults say words, and we have an extensive vocabulary. But I think when you're giving a press conference, there is absolutely no call for dropping F-bombs. Now, supposedly he didn't know he was being simulcast, on radio and TV, but I don't know. Like, he's got a Duke education, which doesn't mean that he should never swear. What it does mean is that he should be smart enough to know what he's doing, where he's at, who his audience is. And I don't care when he coaches his team, he can use the F word every other word for all I care. When he wants to motivate them, when he wants to yell at the officials, I don't care. But when you're giving a press conference where you dress up and you're in front of the cameras and being introduced, I don't understand the need for that. And I think our society has become like that there is no wrong time for it. Well, there is a wrong time for it as far as I'm concerned. Talking to your buddies, texting back and forth, all that stuff, let it rip. I don't care. Again, yelling at an official, motivating your team, go for it. But then when you come in front of you're going to sit down. Bobby Knight had a problem with it. Now, do I find Bobby Knight's rants funny? Yes, I do. So I guess I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth here, but that doesn't mean that it was right when he did it. I think when you do a professional, first of all, you are supposed to be a professional. You're a head coach, and you're sitting down to do a press conference. Then be professional. You can, again, let it rip any other time as far as I'm concerned. But when they bring you in to do and look, I know sometimes you come in and you're heated. You just lost a game. Maybe there's a bad call that cost you the game at the end of the game, and it's hard. But I think, again, and this wasn't even that situation. This was an introductory press conference where someone asked him about something in the past, and I don't give a bleep about that. There's a million ways he could have said that without putting the F-bomb in there. And again, I'm not a prude. I use words too, but there are different situations and different times, and you don't use those words in different situations and different times. And certainly the introductory press conference would be one of those. Next up, I almost was going to start a new segment. Maybe I should start a new segment. Douche of the week. Well, this what's Chase Noggle or whatever his name was, the Texas A&M baseball coach, now Texas baseball coach. What a idiot. He coaches his team to the College World Series finals where they lose 2-1 to Tennessee. He goes in to do the press conference, and there have been all these rumors swirling around that he was going to be Chase Noggle, I think is his name, by the way, the next coach at Texas, which is one of the legendary baseball programs in college sports. And he proceeds to browbeat the media member that asked the question, and at no time has he ever thought about anything but being the Texas A&M baseball coach. Well, the next day, not only does he take the Texas job, he takes all of his assistant coaches with him from Texas A&M, and then word comes out that he was unquestionably recruiting for Texas for at least 2 or 3 weeks towards, as the College World Series. So he's coaching Texas A&M. And look, I don't think anyone from A&M can complain that he didn't give them their best effort. They made it to the finals before getting knocked out. But you want to talk about, I don't know, unethical, crummy, again, douchey comes to mind. There should be some, that to me if they can find actual proof, and I guess from everything I've read and seen, there is actual proof that he was making phone calls on behalf of Texas. His assistants were doing that. Some kind of sanctions should be levied against Texas and this guy, Chase Noggle, for next year. Suspend him for 10 games. I don't know, something. That is something that should not happen. And again, I went on my rant last week about college athletics and the players, transferring and announcing that they're going to go to one school and then backing out. It's no wonder the kids act that way, because here's the example that the adults are setting. That coach not only can get up and leave anytime he wants to without any repercussions, he can also lie about it. He can lie to the players that he recruited at Texas A&M. Yeah, I'm going to be here. Don't worry about it. Got your back. And then he can up and leave in that kind of manner, and probably nothing's going to be done about it. Okay, he looks bad. Do you think he cares whether he looks bad or not? So again, when you want to point the finger at all this crazy nonsense in college sports that is going on, from the portal to the NIL, which really isn't NIL, you can point the finger at the kids. And look, I'm not saying the kids don't own some responsibility in some of their poor decision making, but all they're doing is taking a lead from the adults. The adults are the ones that were greedy. The adults are the ones that can jump ship whenever they feel like it. So the college athletes are now just taking after what they see from the adults. And this guy definitely, if we decide to start a segment douche of the week, he wins it for this week and maybe the next 3 or 4 weeks. That's how bad this move was. And my last rant this week, launch angles. Ugh. Finally, someone, and a guy I absolutely love. I adored him as a kid watching him play. He was my favorite non-Pirate of all time, George Brett, one of the greatest hitters I ever watched hit, has come out and said that the fact that they're teaching these launch angles now is, he said, I will die saying that my way was better. And he said, I swung level, and my bat was in that zone with the ball the whole time. He's obviously, I didn't always get a hit, but my ball was in the zone my bat was in the zone with the ball the whole time. He said, they're teaching these launch angles now, and that bat, he said, has a very small time in the zone with the ball. And yeah, if you connect, okay, it's you're going to hit a mile. But he said, you want to know why guys have already struck out 100 times, 105 times, and we're not even to July 4th yet? That's the reason, because they're all being taught launch angles. They're being taught launch angles at younger ages. I know one of the guys that helped coach at my local high school, and he was so frustrated. And he was working with the pitchers, but he listened to them work with the hitters, and he said, they're teaching them that crap at high school level about launch angles and trying to get elevation on the ball. And it's, I was always taught, and okay, I didn't go anywhere, but I was always taught, try to hit line drives and home runs will come. And I think that you would probably hear a lot of great hitters. I bet if we could resurrect Ted Williams and Stan Musial and guys like that, they would tell you the same thing. I was trying to hit line drives, and then home runs came off of those line drives. You didn't have to try and launch it at a particular angle. And now that we have all the stats and the metrics and all that nonsense, but I was so glad George Brett came out with that quote. And I listened to the Pirate games. I watched them on TV, and John Wayner was saying the same thing the other day. It's the launch angles. That's, they were playing the Reds, and Ellie De La Cruz has already got 103 or 104 strikeouts or something like that. And no one cares. He's considered one of the great, exciting young players in all of baseball. He's going to strike out 225 times this year. In 500 at bats? He's going to strike out in almost half his at bats. And it's, again, I know I'm old school, and I know a lot of the young kids like to see the home runs, and I know home runs saved baseball back in the Sosa and McGuire and Bonds era, but I think it's a lousy way to teach kids to hit. And it's Give me guys that are going to have 50 doubles and less strikeouts as opposed to the guy that's going to have 40 home runs but a zillion strikeouts. I bet if you figured it out, those doubles would mean as much for the team or more than all those strikeouts. It's just crazy how they're teaching that today, and I don't like it. All right, so again, my connection to my column, I guess maybe that would be a better way to say it than the looking for a pig noise to piggyback. Connection to my column. This week I wrote about too many teams in the playoffs, and I kind of centered on baseball. 6 teams from each league in the playoffs, and as I look, especially in the National League, American League's a little bit different, but in the National League, now all of a sudden the New York Mets, good Lord, they were dead in the water, and now they're back to around 500, give or take, and are in this wild card hunt. And they're not very good. I just watched the Reds a bunch the last 2 weeks. They're not very good. I watched the Pirates all season long. They're not very good. I watched the Cubs earlier this year. They're not very good. I watched the Cardinals. They're not very good. I watched the Nationals. They're not very good. Now, the Padres look like they are prepared to make a jump here, and I'd keep an eye on Arizona, who made the World Series last year. I'm not surprised that they've dropped back to a little bit below 500 because I don't think they were that good last year when they made the World Series. But they could make a jump too. But it's going to be interesting. All these teams in the playoffs does 2 things. First of all, it waters down your playoffs. You play a 162 game season, and those games ought to mean more than what they do. When you're allowing teams in, last year, Arizona won 84 ball games. And if you're going to let a team in as the 6th seed at 84 wins, now if a team wins their division at 84 because it was a really bad division, that's kind of the way the cookie crumbles, if you want to keep divisions. But to allow a team in as a wild card at 84 wins diminishes those teams that won 100, 102 games that busted their asses all regular season to have that great record. And then we're going to let a team that was 16 games out of first place into the playoffs. 2 years ago, the Phillies didn't finish second. They finished third in the National League East, 14 games behind the Braves and the Mets. The Braves won the tiebreaker there, and they end up upsetting the Braves in the playoffs, which they seem to the Braves are good at losing in the playoffs, let's be honest. But was that really fair? So that regular season in Atlanta just destroyed meant nothing because a team that kind of slithered in there at the last second, getting that last wild card spot, ends up going to the World Series. So it's 2 years in a row we've had that. And to me, that's not good for your sport. You play 6 months, you play half a year for your regular season. And then at the end, you say, well, what did it really matter? We could have taken the last 2 weeks off, and what would have it mattered? I don't like it. And then the other thing it does, so here we are, we're heading towards, we've got one trade deadline now, the end of July. Well, who are going to be the sellers? Now the Mets probably think they're in it, so they might be buyers. The Nationals might be buyers. The Padres and Diamondbacks might be buyers. The Pirates say they want to be buyers. The Cardinals, the Cubs, so if everyone's buying, who is selling? The White Sox don't have that many players that they can trade to make a difference for all these teams. The Rockies, who do they have that someone's going to be hunting down? It to me hurts the trade deadline. That's always one of the fun middle of the year, middle of the summer doldrums. Hey, trade deadline's coming up. Let's see what moves are made. Let's see if any big names go. And now everyone's buyers because we let everyone into the playoffs. So who's going to make trades? It sounds like the White Sox want to ditch Luis Roberts. That would, he would be certainly on paper a big bat for any of these contenders to add to their lineup. And I'm sure there's going to be a few pitchers out there floating around from some of these lower teams, but it's I don't like that they've watered down the playoffs, and not just because the good teams that play good all year long get knocked out, but it's kind of messing with the trade deadline, which is kind of fun. And the other thing, sticking with baseball, in my final thought of my column, and sticking with this same theme, Pittsburgh fans want the Pirates to desperately make a move, and I keep seeing all these Twitter trades for Luis Roberts or the kid Blade, I think in Miami. I saw someone floated a Chaz Chisholm trade from the Marlins. Look, I want the Pirates to win more than anybody. Trust me. 1979 was 45 years ago. I've lived in a lifetime. I'm 57 now. Watching them, for the most part, with the exception of 6 years, stink up the joint. I certainly want to see them win, but two things stick out to me here. When I went through the Pirates roster, a lot of times Luis Roberts, well, that'd be great. Plus, he'd be under team control. But how many of my great prospects am I going to have to give up? And the Pirates do have some good prospects coming up through, both arms and one or two bats. The bats, not as much, but one or two bats that you might not want to get rid of. But the pitching prospects are the things that teams are going to come asking for. Your Bubba Chandlers, for example. And everyone always wants to offer trades. Well, we'll give you Mike Burrows. Well, no one wants Mike Burrows. He's a pseudo prospect. He might be an okay pitcher, maybe. No one wants Mike Burrows. They want Bubba Chandler or Solamento, the left-hander that's down at Double-A. They're not going to get – Chicago's not going to say, yeah, we'll give you Luis Roberts and give us a bunch of your spare parts that you have in the minor leagues. So that comes to mind, like, you've got good prospects, but you're not it's not like your system's loaded to the hilt. So you trade off 3 or 4 of your good prospects. Now all of a sudden your minor league is quite weak. And is the player that you're going to get or the players that you get going to be enough? Look, the Pirates have a gaping hole at third base because Brian Hayes stinks. It's just simple as that. He stinks. He had 2 good months last year at the end of the year. He wasn't able to carry that into this year. I don't know why the Pirates, by the way, you want me to take them seriously to trade deadline, and you want, why shouldn't they go for it? Well, they didn't go for it in the offseason. We signed Rowdy Tellez, who has come on of late. Grandal, the catcher, who they should cut yesterday. He's terrible. Michael A. Taylor should have been cut 3 days ago. He's terrible. Edwin Olivares, the outfielder, he can be cut tomorrow. He's terrible. Martin Perez is going to pitch tomorrow on Friday. He hasn't done anything real great. Marco Gonzalez has been hurt all year. We picked up all these scrap heap guys. Now, Aroldis Chapman is starting to round into form, and he's lost some of that wildness. But I told you this. He was like that in Texas. Bruce Bochy probably lost 8 years off his life. Watching him in that 7th and 8th inning role that he was in down in Texas. But my point is the Pirates aren't like one bat away. So gaping hole at third base. Gaping hole at first base. Yes, Tellez has been better, but he can't play defense either. And he's still only hitting about 230. So it's not like, he got on a super hot streak just to get to 230, and he still only has 3 home runs. Catcher is a black hole. Henry Davis hasn't worked out yet. I hope he does. I root for the kid. I root for the kid. But he is struggling and probably needs to go back to AAA for a longer stretch of time. Jason DeLay, who's been kicked around the organization, he's always there when we need him. Well, guess what? We need him. And get rid of Grandal, keep DeLay, and Joey Bart will be healthy. But that's still not a real great catching tandem. If you go with Bart and DeLay. Right field is a black hole. Jack Sawinski has not panned out, and he's another kid I root for. It looked like, he hit home runs the last 2 years, and it looked like maybe this year he'd hit the home runs and up his average a little bit, and instead he's gone the opposite direction. He swings and misses more than your 1-year-old toddler. It's sad, and I wish it wasn't that way. And then center field is still a black hole. Like I said, Michael A. Taylor, Sawinski sometimes swings from right field to left field, or I'm sorry, to center field. Connor Joe's I think he's a fantastic guy to have, but he's a bench guy that you can play maybe 3-4 times a week here and there. Give this guy a rest, give this guy a rest. I think he got overexposed. Who was it that said about overexposing guys? Was that Chuck Tanner? Was that a Tannerism? And I think Connor Joe got exposed as the year went on. I think he's a great spot player, though. But that still means, so you've got center field, right field, first base, third base, catcher. O'Neal Cruz needs to get more consistent, but obviously he's your shortstop. Nick Gonzalez has been a blessing from God for Pirates fans at second base. And Brian Reynolds is your all-star without question. By the way, the Pirates could look, and these are all legitimate all-stars. These aren't we got to give the Pirates an all-star. Reynolds should be on the all-star team. Paul Skeens should be on the all-star team. And I would potentially argue that Colin Holderman should be on the all-star team, although he had a bad outing the last time. And I don't know that they're going to take a lot of middle relievers, to put on the all-star team. But I certainly think those two guys, I think the Pirates could get more than one guy on the all-star team. And you know who would be a cool guy to put on the all-star team? How about Andrew McCutchen, who has had a rebirth this year? He's threatening 250. He's already got 11 or 12 home runs. Hit another one yesterday. He's hitting leadoff, so his RBI total's down. Hit his 50th triple the other day. Stole a base the other day. The guy, he's DHing most of the time. He does go out to right field every now and again. I think that would be a cool thing, as one of those veterans. And it's not like he's putting up crappy numbers. He has pretty decent numbers that you could argue that I don't think they're going to, but you could argue that he could be on the all-star team. But anyway, the Pirates, so should they make a move at the deadline? I think they're going to, and it makes me nervous. The last time Bob Nutting, and he came out and spoke, and I said in my column, that's like Charlie Brown's teacher. Wah, 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 wah. That's all you hear when he speaks. But it scares me if he wants to go for it, because the last time he wanted to change fan perception, public perception, he forced Neil Huntington to make a trade that I refuse to this day to believe was all Neil Huntington's idea, where we traded for Chris Archer, who gave the Pirates absolutely nothing. I mean nothing, and gave away Tyler Glasnow, Shane Baz, and Austin Meadows. Meadows was an all-star one year in Tampa, then had some mental health issues. Glasnow is now with the Dodgers, one of the best pitchers in baseball, and Baz is coming back after an injury. So we'll see how he pans out. But it makes me nervous, and Ben Cherington makes me nervous because he's a bad GM. He was a bad GM in Boston. He's a bad GM in Pittsburgh, and I have no faith that they will make good moves or the right moves. And again, I'm not sure it's the right time. I think they're pretend contenders, not actual contenders. Just because everyone's bunched up for that 5th and 6th wild card spot doesn't mean your team is actually ready to contend. And if you would have treated the offseason like you were going to come into this season as contenders, then we wouldn't be having this conversation. But he won't spend money, and he didn't spend money again this offseason. Instead, we went back to the scrap heap, and this is what you get. So I think the Pirates are probably going to make some kind of move, but so is everyone else going to want to make a move, and there's only so many players out there. So it'll be interesting to see. It'll either be that they give away too much to get someone marginally legitimate, or who you think might be legitimate, or they're going to just make some more low-level trash heap trades. We'll bring this older guy in and hope he can find his way in Pittsburgh. I think those are the two directions that this team will head in. But I don't have a lot of faith in them. All right. I'm going to end with my off-topic topic of the week. And I thought about the presidential debate coming up tonight. We could talk a little bit about the debate, but who wants to do that? That will be a poop show, and we all know it. I am 57 going on 15, and I plan to spend the rest of my life that way. And I found the Hawk Tua girl on Twitter and I've enjoyed every meme that they have popped up on my screen. I laugh my ass off at every one of them. I think it's hilarious. What did we ever do when we went out back in the day and there weren't cameras with people with phones asking us idiotic questions and posting it to their TikTok and Instagram? We just went out and had a good time without any videos being displayed. I actually remember my one friend would take his camcorder occasionally, and we had some interesting videos off of that. So I guess that was the original cell phone videotape everything that we do when we're out. But I did think the Hawk Tua girl was just hilarious. But here's what I want to talk about, my off-topic topic. How many of you are dog owners out there? I'm sure a lot of people. I hope that you clean up after your dog so that your neighbors don't have to smell the wasteland that becomes your backyard when you refuse to pick up the dog poop. I have neighbors on both sides that own big dogs, two on my left, and what seems like they've got to have, I don't know, 10 dogs in a house that is quite small. I hate to think about what the inside of that house looks like, but they have been doing a better job keeping their dogs in their yard. That was an issue when they first moved in, but they will not pick up the dog poop. So you've got, I know for a fact, four gigantic dogs, black lab, yellow lab, golden retriever, I think is one of them. And then now they got this medium sized one. So that would be a fifth one. And then every once in a while I see this tiny one, but he usually doesn't come out back. So you've got 4, potentially 5 dogs taking a crap in the backyard. And they just let it there. And when the guy mows, he usually mows once a week. He just mows over top of it. Now I get it, fertilizer or whatever, but I have a nice patio that I paid, for me, a substantial amount of money to have put in. And it's hard to even go out back and enjoy it because of the odor that wafts over from next door of dog poop. So if you're a dog owner, pick up after your dog. Your neighbors very well might not want to smell dog crap all day, every day, and especially in the summer when it gets hot, and that really multiplies it by like 10, how bad it is. So anyway, there's my off-topic topic for this week. All right, Fanatics. Hey, basketball and hockey are over, so you're stuck with baseball and golf. I didn't even do any golf this week. Scotty Scheffler won again. Surprise, surprise. And we still await this deal between Liv and the PGA. By the way, John Rahm hates every second that he's on Liv. You probably heard him cursing the drones at the last tournament in Nashville last weekend. But anyway, I didn't even do golf. But you've got golf, you've got baseball, and start doing your prep work. I read my first college preview magazine for football season at the bookstore yesterday. So those will be coming out, or some of them are out, and the rest will be coming out. So you'll have that to hold you over until football season. So until next week, Fanatics, you know the drill. Be nice to one another.